Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's JBspherefreak and today I'm going to be telling you about 8 changes that I'd like to see if Xenoblade Chronicles X came to the Nintendo Switch. But before we jump into the video, I just want to ask you guys to leave a comment down below on your opinion of the audio quality in the last couple of videos and what your preference is. I've been playing around with it a lot recently, but I think it should be you guys that pick what I sound like from now on. So leave a comment down below either now or at the end of this video. But for now, enjoy. Starting off the list though with number 1, I want to see this new version of the game have a much better structured tutorials. Even to this day, I don't understand some of the core concepts of Xenoblade Chronicles X, especially the overdrive mechanic, which I still can't wrap my head around. And if it wasn't for Ramsey's video about a year back, I wouldn't even know about the Soul Voices functionality. I played through the entire game the first time through without even knowing the core mechanics, which maybe it was just me that missed all of these tutorials coming through the game, but I think they should be more substantial and I've got just the perfect way that they should implement it. I think if the game is ported onto the Switch, they should add in a little prologue at the beginning. Remember that cutscene at the beginning of the game where all those Skells are fighting in space and you see the white whale crash onto Earth? Well, how about if you can actually play through that with the core primary characters and learn all of the game mechanics then before being introduced to your own MC? You could probably just end up playing Elma through the entire thing as she fights through in space to protect the white whale, then as it crashes and playing as Elma as you proceed to where your life pod has landed, and then the game will resume like normal where you create your MC and go from there on in the game. However, everyone will then have a very fundamental understanding of how the gameplay is going to work and how the game's going to play. And I've got to admit, an awesome Skell battle in space with the Ganglion would be amazing to experience at the beginning of the game. It'd also function similar to how Xenoblade Chronicles 1 starts, as at the beginning of that game you play as Dunban along with Mumcar and Dixon in the Battle of Sword Valley, where you're all level 30. So anybody that would be going from the new Xenoblade Definitive Edition would actually recognise the game and relate to it easier from getting those core mechanics. And hopefully this would help newer players that are just starting off on Xenoblade Chronicles X for the first time to get a better understanding of the game, and anyone that's like me who played the game in 2015 and still doesn't understand the mechanics to actually possibly finally get a grasp on how they actually work. Alternatively, you could just watch someone's video like Anel, who made a video actually rather recently on the whole subject, but where's the fun in that when you can experience it all for yourself? By the way, his video will be linked in the description, you should check it out if you want to see more. But that's enough of the beginning of the game, let's go to the end of it. Xenoblade Chronicles X is currently the only Xenoblade which doesn't have New Game Plus. Granted, Xenoblade 2 didn't have it at launch, but it still got it eventually down the line. Xenoblade X has nothing of the sort. And that's why for me, point number 2 that I want to see changed or added is New Game Plus. Now, I'm already well aware that Xenoblade Chronicles X has got a huge post-game in terms of the content and things that you can do in it. However, for me, the story was the main focus of my adventure through the game and the world, and there's no physical way currently in the Wii U version of the game to replay and experience it other than wiping all of your progress and starting again from the beginning. Now, some people enjoy that type of content of having the whole challenge all over again and playing through the game. Some people, like myself, prefer to be able to take all of the content and the hard work they've put in previously and bring it over to the new world. And merely having the option of New Game Plus there gives both categories the option on what they want to do in the aftergame. As far as I'm concerned, there's no downside to adding a New Game Plus. And if we aren't going to get New Game Plus, at least add the event theatre, which was in Xenoblade 2 and Xenoblade Definitive Edition. As a content creator for Xenoblade, it's essential to the work that I'm doing on a daily basis with the game to be able to go back and recapture any gameplay at any point that I need. But it could also serve for those who want to relive the story to be able to re-watch every single cutscene and go through the entire game all over again in terms of that storytelling point. Now, I'd still prefer New Game Plus, because watching the whole game and playing and experience the whole game are two completely separate things. But at a minimum, I'd love to see the event theatre. Let's move on to point number 3. Skells are amazing and they're almost an essential part of the game, providing you with a huge mech which you can outfit to your own customization, to equip your own weapons and abilities to your personal preference on how you want to play the game. And sometimes you take your mech into a dangerous situation where you've bit off more than you can chew, and you valiantly jump out of your mech as it blows up in a miraculous explosion with fire and sparks flying everywhere. Okay, maybe I've exaggerated that a little bit, but can you imagine the disappointment as you get back to base to find out you've then got to fork out 200,000 to just get it repaired? Now, I get players need to be punished for losing a Skell, as it just applies the mentality of how actually valuable they are to the player. But it is so annoying when an enemy one-shots you, destroys your Skell, and you have to fork out all the money coming back for it. I propose a change. Players should still be punished for losing this Skell, but it shouldn't break the bank in terms of having to actually replace it. So I suggest Skell simply go on a cooldown once they've been destroyed, possibly something like 20 minutes in-game time, which still leaves the player vulnerable without the Skell, but they've not lost their entire bank account because they haven't got it anymore. There can also still be the option to pay for the repairs on the Skell, which will repair it instantly, meaning once you've completed the game and got so much money you don't know what to do with, this risk isn't an issue. And what's worse than spending 200,000 G? 800,000 G because your entire party Skells got wiped. For the love of God, please make sure that your party members whose Skells are destroyed don't cost you. The AI isn't programmed to eject from Skells, meaning if an AI party member's Skell gets destroyed, that's it, better be checking your wallet. Sticking on the topic of Skells though is number 4, which is a new feature that I think should be added, which I've dubbed the Skell Scanner. If you're not aware, in Xenoblade Chronicles X, there are 6 different elements that any one attack can take, and all pieces of armour and gear have different resistances to each type of this damage. However, you never know which enemies are weaker and stronger to what resistances and to what abilities they actually have, which brings in the Skell Scanner. It's basically as simple as when in a Skell and targeting an enemy, you'll be able to see their exact resistances, which could mean with your current loadout that you might just want to swap your weapons around and put on different pieces of equipment to fight this particular battle, and would also help with the point that I made in the previous point of knowing whether or not in this fight you're actually going to be able to survive with your Skell, or if its damage potential using, as an example, gravity, is going to one-shot you. Because in my first playthrough, gravity destroyed me a lot.
Oh my god! Oh jeez! Oh my god! Oh jeez!
And just being able to know as a player before engaging if what I'm doing is a good idea with my own loadout at the moment will just make gameplay more fun, and will actually mean that a lot of the equipment that I get from beating other enemies I'll want to keep in the back just in case I encounter an enemy with very low thermal resistance, so all of my flamethrowers and fire attacks will deal a lot more damage. Next, let's go to number 5, which we're going to talk about the follow ball. I found it to be an extremely useful item in Xenoblade Chronicles X for actually finding where you need to go. The core premise of Xenoblade Chronicles X does differ slightly from the other games. Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles 2 are both story games in an open world which have got you exploring incredible areas, where I find Xenoblade Chronicles X is the reverse. You're exploring this open world and discovering the story as you go through this open world, giving you a lot more freedom in terms of what you can and can't do. And to further extend that ability to players, I would change the follow ball slightly so that the actual ball can send you to different things, such as a white ball that takes you to a quest that's nearby. or a yellow ball that takes you to a piece of debris that you can unlock, which will give the player the choice of which one they want to follow and where they want the story to take them. They'll always have the follow ball to go straight directly through to the story if they wish to, but anything that's nearby will allow the player to be taken that way and discover new areas and new items that they might not have if they was just following the direct story and the linear line of the game. But number 6, we've got another new feature, which I'm going to call Auto Miranium Use. Over time, just in the game playing naturally, with your probes in the ground, you acquire Miranium, supposed to be the main resource in the game that you use throughout the whole world of Xenoblade Chronicles. However, if you're like me, you also forgot about this feature until the end of the game and realised, all that Miranium I've had on me all through the game could have been used for a lot of other things. The feature itself, looking back at it now, does seem slightly weird to me again, going back to the fact that the game's supposed to be open world, you're out and about, but having to constantly return to fill up things like arms manufacturers with Miranium seems quite counterproductive. But a feature in the new game where you can set all of your future Miranium to go into a certain location, again, primarily the arms dealers, which means as players you can continue to explore this vast open world and still make progress on all those things back at base all at the same time. This is something you'll be able to switch on and off at will. So if you encounter a side quest like there are a few out there that require a large amount of Miranium, then you can acquire that amount in a couple of hours of playing the game, pass the side quest and then reassign it to wherever you want to go, which will make the whole process feel a lot more fluent and be a lot more fun as just being something in the background which you don't really have to focus on too much whilst enjoying everything else the game has got to offer. For number 7, let's talk about Augments. For anyone who's played Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Augments are basically gems, except you can almost in some cases equip 8 to one piece of gear. It's just another thing which makes the game Xenoblade Chronicles X way too confusing for new players. There are so many different augments, so many different effects, and so many different options that you can choose from, that for most players it's very overwhelming. Now, I agree that the augment system should be in Xenoblade Chronicles X. It was a fundamental feature. However, my one request could be, just make it like the gem system in Xenoblade Chronicles 1. That was so much simpler in terms of being able to choose what gems you wanted where. In the original, you can also add augment slots onto other weapons and gear that didn't initially have them. That could still be an option, but limit it to 3. So you can only have 3 on your sword, only have 3 on your gun, only have 3 on your headpiece, your chest plate, etc. You could also craft augments in the original game, however for the most part they required certain materials and precious resources. Again, relating back to Xenoblade Chronicles 1, just make them enemy drops so that they're more simpler to grind and you can have more freedom to be able to pick and choose what you actually want. There's also different rarities of items in Xenoblade Chronicles X, going from rare to intergalactic. As you move up the ranks, the effects can get stronger. However, if there's a limit on the amount of augments you can actually equip, then the higher levels will always be preset gear, where the lower levels will provide with more customization, but the augments that are already pre-installed aren't as naturally powerful, giving again the player the choice to play the pre-designed way with the pre-designed weapons, or customize their own loadout, which is good for both new players and more experienced players. And finally, let's get to number 8. Can we please have the ability to leave a mission once we've started it? This is best shown on Ramsey's Xenoblade X video.
But here's the big problem. Since I started chapter 12, I can't do any, and I mean anything else till I beat it, i.e. beat the game.
Where he couldn't participate in any other side quests or any other missions because he'd already started part of the main story. A similar incident happened to me, except it was the final boss, and my Skell died. And I couldn't beat the final boss because it was just me on foot, when I'm supposed to have a Skell, but I couldn't leave the mission to do anything else and to get a new Skell, so I had to quit the game, waste 2 hours, and then come back to the game. So yeah, Monolith, just give us the ability to quit the mission if we've got other things that we want to do or participate in. Thanks. And those were 8 changes that I'd like to see in Xenoblade Chronicles X. if it ever comes to the Nintendo Switch. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure to smash that subscribe button and remember to leave a comment about my audio. Till next time, peace.